Hey guys, so I got cut off just a few seconds ago, so I'm going to try this again. So we're going to quickly just go ahead and identify what the question of the day is. So what do we want to be able to respond to? So our QAR strategy, so I'm just going to use another page. And our QAR strategy says that we need to pay attention to what the question is asking us first. So we're not going to read the text as yet. We're going to go ahead and examine the question just so that we understand exactly what we need to know in order to answer the question. So here it goes. So the question is, why is it important to conserve fresh water? All right, so what do you think we need to know here in order to adequately answer this question? So I want you to think about it for a second. Just look at the question, look at any words in the question that we may need to know. What do you think? So if you're thinking that this word right here, conserve, is a word that merits our attention, you are exactly right. And so in order for us to answer this question, we need to know that conserve just means to save. So if we use the replacement strategy, we would just go ahead and reread it with our replacement word, which is save. So why is it important to save fresh water? That is the idea that we want to be able to capture in our constructed response, okay? So now I'm going to go back to where we need to be so that we can actually read the text. Okay, wish me luck. All right, so it looks like I was able to switch screens successfully. All right, so we're going to go ahead and read this text. And basically, we've read the title, and now we know that it focuses on what? Water. Absolutely right. All right, and so later on, we can go back and look at the title to examine why the author titled it this way. That will be an interesting discussion for us to have tomorrow. All right. So let's go ahead and engage in the read, and some of you have already done this with me today, so this will be a refresher for you, okay? All right, so from way out in space, our Earth appears mostly blue. This is because about 3/4 of Earth is covered in water. You may wonder then, why you hear so much about the need to conserve water? So we're going to use that strategy again. Why you hear so much about the need to save water? It seems like there would be plenty of water for all of us on Earth. The problem is that about 97% of the Earth's water is salt water found in our oceans and seas. So remember, like we discussed in class team, it is important to speak the language of purpose. Authors develop paragraphs for particular purposes. And so when we speak the language of purpose, we're talking about explaining. Is the author explaining? Is the author introducing? Is the author revealing something? Is the author describing something? So in this particular instance, what do we think the author is doing? And so today in class, we identify, my group, my team, my kiddos, I love you guys. We identify that the power P, or the power purpose for this particular paragraph, was, you guessed it, to introduce the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that right here. I couldn't get that piece there, but we need the with it. So the problem is that about 97% of the Earth's water is salt water found in our oceans and seas. Now we're going to go ahead and proceed. So the author introduced the problem here. The problem is that 97% of the Earth's water is salt water. That only leaves us with how much left as fresh water? Takes 100% to be complete. So that leaves us 3% of fresh water. Something to think about. So let's proceed to paragraph 2. Have you ever wondered where all that salt comes from in our oceans? You've probably noticed that rain falling from the sky does not taste salty. So why do the oceans contain so much salt? There are actually a few reasons for this. Rainwater first falls as fresh water with little or no dissolved salts. As the fresh rainwater runs downhill, salt is collected from the dirt and rocks. Dirt and rocks naturally contain sodium chloride, which is what we know as table salt. This water then travels through tributaries, which are small rivers or streams found in the mountains that flow into larger rivers. I'm going to stop right here because this is a part of our standard this week using context clues. And we know that authors all provide different types of context clues. And so this one would be what? So I'm going to highlight this one and give you a second to think. What kind would it be? Would it be a synonym clue? Would it be an antonym clue? Would it be an example clue? Which one? All right, you guessed it. It would be a definition clue. Because if we look here, we see that the word is italicized, which shows us that the author wants us to pay particular attention. He wants to emphasize that word to us. And we note that that magic punctuation mark, that comma, is going to offset the definition. And there it is. So it says tributaries. Tributaries are small rivers or streams found in the mountains that flow into larger rivers. So we're going to continue. After the water from the tributaries flow into larger rivers, the rivers transport the water to the ocean. Although rivers only have a small amount or small amounts of salt, these small amounts are constantly flowing into the oceans. Salt can also be added to the oceans because of the constant pounding of waves on the shores. That's interesting. Because the waves beat against the dirt and rocks on the shore, salt is again released into the water. It's a lot of salt, folks. A final way salt can be added to the ocean is from the undersea volcanoes that erupt and release more salt into our oceans. So let's stop again. We're going to really survey this text and kind of look at paragraph 2 and see what is it that this author is trying to convey to us. What's the power P? All right, so let me give you a second to think. Is he explaining something, describing something? What do you think is happening here? All right. So yes, the author is describing the process in which salt does what? Gets into the ocean. Very good. And so I want you to pay close attention because the author notes several different ways that salt gets into the ocean. And that's all housed in paragraph 2. Again, power purposes. All right. So that one was description. All right. So we're going to go to paragraph 3. So now we know how salt gets into the ocean, right? So yeah, we just said that. So yeah, we're absolutely on the right track. But you might be thinking that the fresh rainwater that falls would dilute or water down the amount of salt in the ocean. Here it is again, team. There it is. Look at that word dilute. It's italicized. That means the author wants to emphasize it to us. But I want you to pay attention to how this looks, the constructs. What do we see? We see that magic punctuation mark, the comma, which offsets the definition clue. So the definition is provided to us right here. So if we were trying to uncover the meaning of this word, it is given to us via a definition clue. So here is why this does not happen. When sunlight hits the ocean, the heat causes the water to change from a liquid to a gas. This process is called evaporation. Another italicized word. The gas that is formed when water evaporates is called water vapor. Again, what do you see? An italicized word. Yes. This water vapor will later fall as rain. However, the salt that is in the ocean does not evaporate. All right, so let's go and think about that. So the salt that's in the ocean is not evaporating. The water is evaporating, but the salt remains. And let's see what happens as a result of this. All right, therefore, the amount of salt in the ocean stays the same while the amount of water decreases as it evaporates. This means the concentration of salt in the ocean is actually increasing over time rather than decreasing. Again, so what is the power P? What is the author trying to convey? So we already knew he was describing in paragraph 2 that how salt gets into the ocean. So what is he doing in paragraph 3? So he mentions dilution. He mentions evaporation. He mentions water vapor. What is he trying to convey to us? All right, I want you guys to think about that one. I don't want to give it away. All right, think about it. What is the power P? Is he telling us about the salt? what specifically is he focusing on? All right, so he's trying to basically what? Reveal that there is an explanation. So he wants to explain how water is evaporating, but the salt content remains. All right, so we're going to proceed to the 4th paragraph. Since so much of Earth's water is salty, we only have a limited amount of fresh water available for us to use. Remember that only 3% of the water on Earth is fresh water. And out of this small amount of fresh water, more than 2% of that is frozen. Y'all, that's crazy, isn't it? So that leaves us with what? That leaves us with 1%, right? So most of the frozen water can be found in ice sheets that cover places in Antarctica and Greenland. An ice sheet is a giant chunk of ice and snow covering a very large area of land. Ice sheets have been frozen for thousands of years. Glaciers, floating ice, glaciers, there it is, another one, a definition clue. Glaciers, floating chunks of ice, also make up a portion of our Earth's fresh frozen water. The liquid fresh water left for us to use can be found in rivers and lakes. Some fresh water is also found underground. However, the amount of fresh water left for us to use is less than 1% of water on Earth. That is really, really interesting. Wow. Knowing this information should change our minds about the amount of water we use. It certainly does for me. How do you guys feel about it? So what do we think the power of P here is? So yeah, the author is informing us, giving us some information, providing us with statistics, providing us with percentages here so that we are fully aware of what is happening with the water, the amount of fresh water that we do have. So he's letting us know that out of that 3% of water that is fresh water, 2% of it is frozen. So that only leaves us 1%. So that leaves us with the consciousness in our mind that, hey, we need to really, really be mindful of how we use water. Last one, I hope I have left you with some food for thought that will help you understand why we need to conserve water. The more we know about the water we use, the better we will be able to do our part to help preserve water for future generations. All right, team, so we're done reading the text. If you need to revisit the text, feel free to click on this video again. So the next one that follows, part 3, will be the actual writing of the constructed response. All right, team, happy learning.